Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. Russia continues its brutal attacks against civilians, with more than a dozen people confirmed dead following an attack on a shopping center. One that also deliberately targeted first responders arriving on the scene. But despite mounting evidence of Russian war crimes, many Ukrainians complain Western support has been insufficient as of late, with air defense being an area where shortages are felt most acutely. Can Moscow continue to act with impunity while civilians in Ukraine pay the ultimate price? Joining us here today is Stephen Moore, founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Great to be with you.
Right, so we have another attack on civilians in Ukraine. As of making this interview, there were 16 confirmed casualties, people who died in this attack, but also more than 130 people wounded. And this was a double tap attack, so first responders were also targeted by the Russians. Do you think that the response so far from the West has been rather restrained, as if this has become something that people no longer seem to notice?
No, I think you're exactly right. And, we advocate for Ukraine on Capitol Hill and in the administration every day. And we build Republican support for Ukraine. And whether you're Republican or Democrat, the suffering of the Ukrainian people has been baked in. And so that's no longer effective messaging in moving Americans to act now, or for that matter, I think Europeans as well. There's two ways to stop this. One is to give Ukraine the means with which to shoot down the ballistic missiles that are coming in, or you can stop funding the Russian war machine. And Belgium, for instance, in July, they 100% of their LNG came from Russia, and every day they bought enough LNG to fund about 174 Shahed drones. But here's what people need to realize is that Ukraine is winning this war by any metric, and except for one. Russia is killing more civilians, and Ukraine's navy is smaller than that of the desert country of Algeria. Yet it is damaged or destroyed more than 200 Russian ships. And for Americans that are listening, America is currently at war with Iran, and Ukrainians have sunk or destroyed 9 ships that are involved in bringing Russian weapons to Iran. So we're in a global war, and Ukraine is really the only country in the world that's acting on that information.
So you've mentioned a couple of ways in which the West can help Ukraine. We, of course, know about the shortages of Patriot missiles, but there is another discussion that has been basically moving in parallel to that. Ukraine has requested the ability to use the Starlink network above Russia in order to locate and target Russian missile launchers. Without this support, Ukraine will find it difficult to essentially eliminate these launchers because they tend to move around. They are much more difficult to target than stationary facilities. But so far, Elon Musk has been adamant that he would not be doing that. And of course, this is a private company that he is running, so he may have his qualms. But do you think that there is a possibility that perhaps this discussion could yield some fruit further down the line?
Yeah, I think that's a conversation worth continuing. Elon Musk has shown an inclination to change his mind on this stuff multiple times over the course of this war. And the former defense minister, Fedorov, has a good relationship with Musk, and actually was a big part of the reason that Musk decided to turn on Starlinks inside Ukraine at the beginning of this war. So that's an essential weapon, the Starlinks, and it's non-lethal, but it guides everything else. And being able to use that inside Russia would enable the Ukrainians to not just, you can take out the arrows, you can shoot down the missiles that are coming in, or you can kill the archers, which the Starlink capability would give Ukraine a much better capability of doing that.
But of course, in all fairness, do you think that Elon Musk is basically worried that this could be seen by Russia as a escalatory action? And given that his is a private company, he is not a defense contractor. He cannot possibly count on the same degree of security as, say, any sort of unit within the US military. He might be concerned that Russia could try to retaliate, even by trying to disable satellites in orbit, which naturally would have been another escalatory move, this time on the part of Russia. But do you think that such concerns might to some extent be justified in this case?
Well, if you look at the history of this war, President Biden had a policy of managed escalation, which meant that he managed Ukraine's escalation, but not Russia's. And so that has gotten us to the point where we are, which is Russia continues to attack its neighbor, and more than one neighbor. As I recall, Poland had the good fortune of having a Kinzhal missile strike into its land. Romania's gotten hit many times. Estonia, Lithuania, even Germany had a Russian drone that they found inside an airport in Germany. So, this is what has brought us, this policy of being afraid of Putin, of being afraid of escalation. Putin responds to strength. Putin does not respond to people who are afraid of him. So, the Ukrainians have learned that, and I think it's time that Trump and Elon Musk stop relying on the failed foreign policy of the Biden administration and put Putin in his place.
Do you think that this might happen? I mean, we've seen this this approach evolving. First, we've had the rather unfortunate, televised meeting. Obviously, that was an altercation between Donald Trump and President Zelensky at the White House. The relationship has since markedly improved, yet we also have this hesitation concerning what role America should play. Should it be a mediator? Should it try to connect the warring parties and try and find a negotiated solution? Or should it firmly support one party against the other? And there are, of course, fears that Russia would see this as some sort of aggressive activity. But do you think that at this stage, the approach based on trying to connect Putin, Zelensky, trying to have them negotiate, that it has run its course and that Russia has set its sights firmly on a military solution to that and is not really interested in negotiating in good faith anymore?
Well, there's a saying that diplomacy is a velvet glove over an iron fist, and we need to employ that iron fist a lot more. And, we need to continue diplomacy. We also need to put pressure on Vladimir Putin to come to the table in a reasonable fashion. And, again, that meeting you referenced in the White House, that was in February of 2025. So that was quite a while back. And the Zelensky administration has really been impressive in how they communicate with MAGA, how they build support among Republicans, and how they're able to communicate with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to be president of the United States for, another, 29 months, and he will make all the important decisions about Ukraine in that time frame. So, Ukraine's doing a good job in managing that relationship. And, the question is, as you point out, what's it going to take to ratchet up the pressure on Putin? Because, again, Putin's attacking Europe. Putin is sending weapons to Iran to kill U.S. service members. Russian-made Shahed drones have killed as many as 14 American service members. So we're in a global war. And the sooner that President Trump and Secretary Hegseth and some of the other ones that are in charge of this war recognize that, the better off we'll all be.
Do you think that Lindsey Graham's legacy, the legislation which would allow more sanctions to be imposed on Russia, would play a significant role in that? How far are we from this legislation being implemented to the extent that Russia would essentially start feeling the heat?
Well, I worked in the U.S. House of Representatives for about 7 years at the highest levels in leadership. And this one has a ways to go. Here's the upside, is that It's passed the Senate. It's going into the House of Representatives, which is always harder. The House of Representatives is by design more unruly and more difficult to control. And Speaker Mike Johnson is in favor of this legislation, but the extremes on both sides are having problems with it. Yeah, the far left and the far right are not in favor of this legislation for various reasons. And it depends on how many votes that Speaker Johnson can lose on the far left, on the far right, and get this thing passed. I think Trump will sign it because it's his idea. So we'll see. We'll know a lot more by, say, mid-September. Right now, the Congress is out of recess. In recess, out of session. And so they're not working on legislation right now, but we'll know more in September. But I will say that the Ukrainians have been doing their own sanctions, their kinetic sanctions. They've blown up something like 14 out of the most top 20 refineries in Russia, and put their refining capacity back to 2002 levels. So again, Ukraine is fighting this war. Ukraine is doing a good job. It could use some help from both the U.S. and from Europe.
So how do you think we, as allies of Ukraine, can help civilians survive the winter? Because this is going to be the most trying period. We've already seen a sample of that last year, and it might actually get even worse because Russia may attack facilities producing energy and ensuring the provision of heat and water to major cities with virtual impunity, since there are not enough Patriot missiles available. And Russia is ramping up the production of its own ballistic missiles. So what can be done in order to avoid what is shaping up to be a humanitarian catastrophe?
Well, that's a good question. I'll tell you this. I think, currently all signs are that this winter is not going to be the record-setting cold winter that last winter was. So we're blessed by that forecast. We hope it comes true. I live in Kyiv, and it's not the cold that's the worst thing. It is, my concern is if they take out the water supply, and there's ways to deal with the water supply and bring more water in. But, again, sewage is, if they take out the ability to take away sewage, that becomes really disgusting and hard to live with very quickly. And here's some of the things. So European NATO countries, which is Turkey, Spain, Belgium, France, Slovakia, and Hungary are pouring billions upon billions of dollars every month into Russia's war machine by purchasing Russian fossil fuels. And the European, if they stop buying Russian fossil fuels, that really impairs Putin's ability to wage war. That's one that's easy. Two, you can, those people that have Patriot missile interceptors, gather up a few, send them to Ukraine. Every one of them helps. And again, I think three, Ukraine has an industry itself where they're building these interceptors, and they're building drone interceptors, and they're building long-range missiles and drones that strike into Russia. That's underfunded. Just funding the homegrown Ukraine defense industry, that's also helpful.
And very quick question. Do you think that somehow, would it be possible to get those S-400 launches from Turkey into Ukraine through some sort of underhand arrangement? I know theoretically it shouldn't happen, but you've got plenty of anti-aircraft systems which might get scrapped as a result because Turkey wants F-35s, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's a sort of deal making that needs to be done, and perhaps Donald Trump, with his reputation as a deal maker, can make those deals. Again, Turkey is the third largest purchaser of Russian fossil fuels, and Turkey's also been helpful to Ukraine by controlling the Bosphorus Straits to Russian traffic, and so Turkey's kind of sometimes will help, sometimes will not, but yeah, to your point, there's we can cobble together deals where we can get these missile interceptors from various countries around the world. Spain actually ordered in 2025 4 Patriot missile batteries, and I don't think Donald Trump likes Spain very much anymore. And certainly Spain has, they're the second largest purchaser of Russian fossil fuels in the EU. So they've not been super helpful to Ukraine either. They're about 5 times more funding Russia than they are Ukraine right now. So maybe we should take those Spanish Patriots and send them to Ukraine.
Stephen Moore was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Always great to be with you. Thanks so much.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.